Hey super friends, my name is Neil and welcome to this episode 74 of the Get Your Comic Con podcast. We're here fortnightly-ish to bring you a slice of film, TV and pop culture goodness from our swelteringly hot studio direct to your speakers. I will be joined a little later on by my very own boy Wonder Martin, but for now it's up to me to kick things off by talking about some of the biggest stories that have been rocking the world of pop culture recently. So let's kick off with the very, very sad news that everyone is well aware of at this point, that Warner Brothers has shelved the release of Batgirl. So this is director Adil El Arbi and Bilal Falal's first DC movie, starring Leslie Grace as Batgirl, Barbara Gordon. It has been decided that this film is not going to be released. Yeah, this is very, very sad news. Very, very sad news, particularly for the hundreds of people that were involved. You've also got Michael Keaton, who was in this, obviously, as Batman. You had Brendan Fraser, who was going to be playing Firefly. We know that Killer Moth was going to be in this film. J.K. Simmons back as Commissioner Gordon. This was a hot film that was in the pipeline. It had only had 10 weeks of post-production. It had had one test screening. It had only just been confirmed for a theatrical release here in the UK. But for plenty of business reasons, it has been decided that it's not going to get released. So I am kind of well aware that this has been well documented by this point, but I wanted to touch on it because I think there's a lot of misinformation around this out there on the internet. I am obviously not part of Warner Brothers. I don't know the inside track, but I do know the difference between the studio line, what the big kind of industry trades say, and then what random Twitter user another says when they just want to say their piece and talk shit on Twitter. So what we do know is that Batgirl, as we talked about when it was first announced and when Leslie Grace was first cast, was commissioned, written for and produced for HBO Max, a streaming service. It is essentially kind of a TV movie. If you think about direct to streaming films that you've seen on, maybe discount Netflix, who have obviously won awards for theirs, and same with Apple, but if you think it's a Disney Plus or you look at Paramount Plus, you do have it. I mean, they're not TV movies in the sense that some of us who are in our 30s or more might remember from the 90s and the 80s, but they are, they're not the big budget blockbusters that you would see in the cinema. They are more cheaply made. They're well budgeted for a kind of smaller screen and for a home audience. And for that reason, that seems to be why Warner Brothers felt that this film wasn't able to be released. The idea is that the new head of Warner Brothers Discovery has his opinion on streaming movies. He has made it very clear that he does not want to make and put any money from his company, which he bought with something ridiculous like $3 billion debt. He doesn't want to invest in movies, quote unquote, which are only going to go to streaming, because you don't make the money back in the way that you would theatrically, and you don't get the longevity of subscriptions that you would from spinning out a TV show like Stranger Things or from all of the DC shows that we see on HBO Max. So his options are release it on HBO Max anyway and potentially lose money, or put more money into a film that's already cost between 70 and 90 million, which is modestly budgeted these days, and put it in the cinema. But does that mean half the film needs reshooting? How do you get all the cast back? Can you get all the cast back? Clearly, this is a very business-minded decision and not a creative decision, because arguably the directors deserve to have their vision seen regardless, and that's my standpoint on it. I think it should have been seen regardless, but for business reasons, it was decided that it was better to shelve it and take a tax rebate on it rather than release it in cinemas. Anything that you may have heard about poor test screening, ignore. There was only one. It was a very rough edit. It had a reasonable score. Anything you've heard about the fact that it's to do with Ezra Miller and problems that they have, ignore that, particularly given that today they've publicly apologized, albeit supposedly, if again you believe the conspiracy theorists of Twitter, that's somebody from Warner Brothers writing that rather than Ezra themselves. But back to Batgirl, it's it is a purely business decision which has been made to try and save money at a studio which needs to claw back $3 billion at this point in time. It's a very, very sad decision. It's not one I agree with. It's not one I'm happy with, but it's not one that we have any control over. Final thing that I have to say about this is it's nice to see that so many people are jumping on the kind of hashtag save Batgirl, hashtag release Batgirl scenario on social media. But from what I understand, because they've taken a tax break on this, it now has to be written off and they can no longer make profit on it, meaning that they can't release it in any way that we can buy it or subscribe to watch it. So short of it being leaked, I don't think this is a film that we're going to see for a long, long time, if ever, which is very, very sad. And I'm sorry for that, but I hope the rumours are true that Warner Brothers would like to work with Leslie Grace in the future, because from what we saw of her from behind the scenes footage and what we saw of her in stills, she was a badass Batgirl. So let's park that one there, I think. Sticking with Warner Brothers, the studio also had its first investor call since the merger with Warner Brothers. Again, I don't want to linger on some of this too long because it's very well documented and there's plenty of rumour and hearsay going around social media. But one thing that was very encouraging to hear is that David Zaslav, who is the new head of Warner Brothers Discovery, is has crafted a DC Studios. I don't know if that's what it would be called, but DC will become its own studio within Warner Brothers. It will have its own kind of silo, its own production wing. It will have its own set of executives, as Marvel Studios does over at Disney. It's something that they're looking to hire in kind of the executives for at the moment. They've already brought in Alan Horn. That name may not ring a bell to many of you, but Alan was at Disney on the ground when Marvel Studios was created and was instrumental in the hiring of Kevin Feige, which, hopefully means that he will be instrumental in hiring someone similar for DC. That does not mean that Warner Brothers is purely looking to make a Marvel universe. We don't know what their plans are. They've said that they would like a 10-year plan, and this is something which caused holy hell on social media with people saying, you've told us you had a 10-year plan before. He didn't say he has a 10-year plan. He said that he wants his executives in place for DC Studios and to then have a 10-year plan for what will happen. We know that Joker 2 has been confirmed and that will star my least favourite actress on the planet, Lady Gaga. Story for another day. So we know that they are moving ahead with certain properties. Hopefully the Batman 2 will find itself greenlit very soon. Matt Reeves is working on a script for it. We know that the HBO Max shows are currently safe, so we have new seasons of Titans and Doom Patrol and Peacemaker coming up, as well as the Green Lantern show, which remains in development, as well as the Constantine show, and also the Penguin spin-off from the Batman. Presumably the Dead Boy Detectives, which is a spin-off from Doom Patrol, is also still in the pipeline as well. But there are certain properties which are going to carry over, and then they want a plan. So it's very encouraging news for the future, but we will have to watch this space to see whether that becomes the kind of, what do I want to say, the multimedia kind of juggernaut that Marvel has become, that we all know that DC deserves to be. Just to cap off the news for this episode, it's just something personal from us, actually. So we are now in our 9th year of Get Your Comic On, the website. Obviously not the podcast, has not been going quite so long, but we are now making plans for our 10th anniversary, which will be July the 26th, 2023. Also happens to be my birthday that day as well, actually. How sweet, we share a birthday. But that means there are going to be some changes across the year. Nothing life-changing. Don't panic too much. We're not going anywhere. Certainly not. You're going to have us for at least another 10 years yet. But you will slowly start to see a few things change just around the design work, and maybe the design of the website will start eking towards a brand new design. Everything is going to come under the banner of hashtag GYCO10, which is going to culminate in some pretty major festivities which are working on at the moment for July of 2023. But if you want to join in the party, you've got any suggestions of things that you'd like us to do to help celebrate the anniversary, then get in touch. You can find us on social media at Get Your Comic On all major platforms. And if you want to talk to me, then I'm at Neil Vag. That is it for the news this week. Let us dive into a film I want to tell you all about. Earlier in the year, I was approached by an indie company to take a look at a horror film called Followers, which is a found footage film. I'll read you the synopsis from IMDb. A struggling social media influencer discovers the house he shares is haunted. The ghost brings him and his friends fame and fortune, but with deadly consequences. The film was written and directed by, sadly, the late Marcus Harben, who passed away before the film was completed. It stars Harry Jarvis, Daniel Carhill, Larice Harrison, and Erin Austen as the lead students in the kind of haunted house that you can find. It also happens to star a very recognisable face in Nina Wadia, who you will definitely know from TV. I'm sure some of you out there just rolled your eyes when I said found footage, which is something that goes all the way back to the Cloverfield days, but Followers is a really fun film. For a start, it's British, which is not something that we see very often, especially not breaking through into a major market these days, but it's a very cool, very well imagined horror. I've reviewed it over on the website, so you can go and check out my written review there now. It's so well thought out in terms of the number of different types of cameras that are used, which is all dependent on where they kind of are in their influencer career, how there are multiple camera angles in different scenes, how different scenes are played out from, whether it be on a phone or whether it be on a computer or whether you're watching back footage from elsewhere. It's very cleverly constructed, and considering the way it was filmed, which is over a kind of a 2-week period in one location, it must have been so complex to shoot. So what comes together is an incredible film, and I had the pleasure of talking to Erin Austen and Harry Jarvis. I nearly called him Jonty Craig, which is his character's name, a little while ago, just before we went on holiday to Chicago to talk about this film, and you kind of get the impression from them just how complex this was and how much of a different and unique experience it was in making a movie. So I can't recommend it enough if you like a good horror film. There are some good scares in there, some great characters. It is satirical at the same time. There are some really funny laughs in there as well. Marcus Harben's script is so witty and it's so brilliant, and it sounds like the film could have been edited in so many different ways to have carried it out and kind of, explored different avenues with the story. But check out what happened when I sat down with Erin and Harry to talk about making this film. So thank you guys so much for taking the time to chat with me about Followers. I wanted to go straight back to the kind of the beginning. How did you get involved with this film?
Take it first. Yeah, I just got the call from my agent about the audition and kind of got sent the script, and there was just a little scene or two that you had to do to just self-tape, and then you sent off the scene, and then we got a recall and you kind of worked with the director, and then the next stage was kind of chemistry tests, which was bizarre. You had 3 of you, 3 of the other character and 3 of the other, and then it was like the X Factor where they're trying to find the right band, like One Direction, and they just go, try this person, and there was like the 4 main characters, and they're just looking for the right fit of the people that come together. And then managed to grab the part and just got to read the full script and kind of all the different versions, and then a few weeks later we were around the table having our first read.
For me, Marcus reached out to me with the script kind of a while before. I was never like nailed on for the part necessarily, but he wanted to kind of chat it through with me and see what I thought of it, and we kind of I gave him feedback on it. I thought it was a fantastic script, but I thought it needed some fine tuning in areas, which, I mean, it was still like a rough draft at that point. And he went back, took another look at it, and then came back to me with it later when we got to like the audition stage. I was like, yes, this is really, really cool. This is absolutely batshit crazy. I love it. And so that's kind of how I got involved. And then we did all the chemistry reads, and it was just trying to find that mix, because you need the right balance of crazy and quiet for a horror film. And I think that's kind of what we found, especially with Larice balancing out the rest of us.
Well, you both just touched on the script. I mean, there's such a brilliant mix of different horror subgenres in there, as well as the kind of the more comedic elements to it. So what were your first reactions like when you read the script? Erin, what was your reaction to it?
I think I had different reactions at every point in the script. At first, it was like a satirical comedy almost, and kind of like Cabin in the Woods, like taking the mick out of the horror genre.
Yeah.
And then I thought, oh, there's some jumpy bits in there, like maybe we're going more traditional. And then there was the twists along the way, and just all these different elements that I didn't really know kind of what I was signing up for, but that made it more exciting in a way.
Yeah. It's funny because the Cabin in the Woods thing, that's exactly what Marcus wanted. That's what he kept talking about. It actually started off a lot more like Cabin in the Woods and veered a bit further away from it as it went through different drafts. And as it went through different edits, it became a different film as well. There's about 10 different films edited in there if you want. With the amount of footage that we got, that was planned, unplanned. There's so many things in the film that we just shot between the four of us, because they left 17 cameras in the place that we were filming, and we lived and slept there. So whenever we wanted, we could just pick one up and shoot it. So there's so much unused footage, and I bet if you re-edited that film, you could get a completely different storyline out of it.
Well, I was going to say, so I mean, the sheer volume of footage which is in the film, you know, the final edit of the film is mind-boggling as it is, from the, as you just say, all the different cameras to then scenes where you've got multiple different camera angles, and you know, it was all filmed in what, under 2 weeks while you were living in that house. I mean, what was that like, being in that bubble while you were filming? That must have been insane.
So fun, so fun, absolutely insane, but so fun. I don't remember having a set like that in my life. I mean, obviously, usually sets, you don't film a film in 10 days in 1 or 2 locations anyway, but the group of people were fantastic. Honestly, I feel like we all just vibed so well, got along with each other so well. We probably had to like kind of tone it down every now and then because we were having too much fun. But it was also, it felt very method in a way, because you become so used to and aware of your surroundings. Like you're going and having breakfast downstairs, you're shooting in your bedroom, you know where everything is. So it very much becomes almost that, if I can go a little actory on you, Stanislavski kind of method of, once you know your surroundings so well, you can really kind of envisage what your character would do and where they would go, and so that definitely really helps, like, in creating the characters, creating the realism and kind of natural banter, for want of a better word, between the four leads.
What was it like for you, Erin?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't get to experience uni because I went to drama school, which is more like boarding school. So it was just so much fun. And yeah, like Carrie said, it was like one big family, and you work with, you know, the gaffer or the lighting person, or, you know, someone on the camera, and then they're going to sleep literally in the room below you. Or I shot, you know, a scene in my bedroom as Amber, and then took my makeup off and went to sleep in that room because that was my room as well. So it was a bit bizarre. It was like nothing I've ever experienced before, but it was epic. It was so much fun. You can't really call it work.
No, it sounds like it. Was it daunting having to kind of adapt to the idea of shooting the film as well as acting in the film, and kind of having those moments where you were sort of maybe giving dialogue but also having to hold the camera at the same time? What was that like to adjust to as a kind of process?
I'll let you take it.
I mean, I didn't film much, to be honest, because Marcus gave me the camera, I think, on like day 3, and said, what would Amber do with this camera? And I just sent it to me, a little selfie, like, why would someone else? So yeah, I kind of got away with that, luckily, so I didn't have to worry about being too technical.
I filmed bits because, especially near the start, John T's just got no idea what he's doing. He's not got a clue. He's trying to do this new method, and he's an idiot. And he's just constantly pointing the camera at himself. His shots are meant to be all over the place. So the fun thing about that was, I'm not like a great, you know, camera operator, but I'm not that bad. And you have to kind of intentionally make the shooting worse for someone who just has no clue what he's doing. And then as it progresses, Zorna, Larissa's character, who does most of the camera operating, is like, you can't be the one in charge of this anymore. You're missing everything. And you keep trying to get selfies, and that's not going to work. So then she takes a real spearhead in the filming operation. She learned so much from our director of photography, Al Niblo, who did a lot of the shots himself, but also was so liberal with just giving the camera to us. And Larisse really did her research. She spent hours with the cameras, and she actually became a really good camera operator. I think Al was really impressed. And she shot on Panasonic, Sony's, I think we did the Red, right? Not the Alexa. GoPros, iPhones, night vision cameras, the works.
It's almost like a guerrilla film school in a way.
Yeah. it was horrible for the editor, I'm sure. He's trying to make sure all this grades so it doesn't look absolutely insane. But he did a brilliant job. Will Honeyball is an amazing editor. I worked on another film with him. He's just incredible.
And obviously, sadly, Marcus, the director, is no longer with us. But I wanted to just touch on what it was like working with him. What was he like as a director, particularly on a project that like this, which is so different to what you would see in kind of even mainstream horror?
Yeah.
Like everything you could want and more as an actor. And I'm not just saying that because he's not here. Genuinely, he gave you the right amount of freedom, but the same amount of direction. He would speak to you about the scene and see if you were comfortable with it, see if you agreed on the character, and if you both think that they would react in this way. And if you had an emotional scene or a scene that required a certain emotion, he would take you to the side and get you rattled up for that scene. He'd say stuff to you as a person that would just get you in that mindset, and then give you a little high five on the way out. Or he'd ask you, like, what do you need to get into this scene? And there was one scene which required me to be like heartbroken and so emotional. And I knew the only way I was going to get there is listen to this song that makes me cry like instantly. But I needed a moment with my headphones. And in the chaos of a set, I could not tell you how hard it must have been to be like, everyone, shut up. Erin needs a minute. And he did. And he literally silenced the set and he let me have my minute in my corner. There must have been about 30 people trying to do their job. But for him to just take the audacity to just say, no, like, this is what my actor needs. And he supported us throughout. And yeah, he was just a blessing.
Yeah. He wore his heart on his sleeve massively. You'd know what Marcus was feeling, and if he wasn't happy with a shot, you could tell straight away. And in a similar way, you could tell when he was so happy with what he'd just got. Other directors, they're like, fantastic, moving on. Marcus was actually like, yes. Or he'd be like, and you'd be like, okay, what do I need? And then, like Erin said, he'd either rile you up, he'd get you in a headspace. I remember there were times, especially when you're like shooting 14-hour days, and just absolutely crazy. Everyone like in one tiny location, it gets really hot. I remember me and Marcus would have arguments. We'd shoot the scene which required all the anger, and then he'd be like, see? I'd be like, all right, yeah, okay, sorry. He had a really, really interesting way of directing, which I've not seen before, but I think produced really great results.
Yeah, definitely. So was there much room to kind of improv within that as well? So in between him kind of riling you up, was he allowing you to kind of give it your own spin or what felt comfortable in the moment?
Yeah. Oh yeah. So much of the film's improv. Dan especially.
Yeah.
Who played Pete. So many of the insults are just off the cuff from him. There's so many. Yeah. He came up with so many things, and Marcus would generally say, just do whatever you fancy for this, say whatever you like, and Dan would reel off 6, 7, 8, 15 insults in a row, or try different things, and some of them made them in, some of them I wish there was a blooper reel so you could see them because they're hilarious. So some of them you should never ever go anywhere near a screen, but they were brilliant. But Marcus just had so much freedom. You could try whatever you wanted, especially considering the time constraint we were on. He was so supportive of people just trying things, it's just exactly what you want as an actor. It's so much fun.
He's also so generous in that he asked you, would you use this insult? Some of your generation, do you kids use this? No? He'd be so to changing it, and we'd be like, no, I think that's a bit dated. We need to change it here. And he was always so suggestions.
Yeah, true. And like with Tanya, for example, he asked her a bunch of stuff when she came on set about the influencer world and the words they use and what they don't use, and she kind of gave him a roadmap, and he changed a lot of stuff based on what she said, and I think she has a more intimate knowledge of it than most people, so it felt a lot more real coming from her. Yeah.
Wow. Erin, I just wanted to touch on Amber for a second. She's kind of our sort of closest equivalent to a scream queen in the film. What was it like to inhabit the character? What was she like?
Nightmare. No, you kind of, you read her and you think, oh, I know this girl, like she's so annoying, I know her. But then you want to get into the character and you see the situation she's put in and how much she wants to please and actually fit in and be popular, and you just kind of think to yourself in that situation with new people, and you find the empathy and like the softness of her. So it was really hard for me because Marcus wanted a scream queen and he wanted the stereotypical side of Amber, but to also just go, look, this girl, if she screams the whole film and whines and crawls back to John T, like that's not a likable person, and it's not a truthful person, because no one is that one dimensional.
Yeah.
So it was really hard to find the balance between giving the film what it needed, which was a scream queen and someone that is scared of everything, but also giving her a bit of fight that justified why she was in that situation in the first place, because someone who was scared of everything would have just left, but she keep coming back. So you've got to find like the conflict there a little bit. So it was very hard, but yeah, it was interesting. Always trying to look at the script and go, right, I think Amber does this because of this, and I think she's got this soft side and this vulnerable side and this feisty side as well. She's not just a scream queen.
Yeah, absolutely. And then with John T, I mean, he has this. I mean, he craves the spotlight. His drive is to, to be the center of attention. How I feel like I've been at many screenings with a John T. I feel like I know many John Ts from just this whole kind of podcaster sort of world. But how did you get into that mindset? Was there anybody that you had kind of in mind? Were you looking at any influencers, dare I say it, and kind of trying to take inspiration from anyone like that?
Yeah, for sure. I looked at people like Jamie Lang, reminded me a little bit of Shanti. Logan Paul, or the Paul brothers, gave me a lot of that. I think it's the thing with Jonty that you don't see so much in those kind of people, is most of what it comes from is just the fact that he is just craving an identity and to fit in and be liked. It's almost a little bit sad when you see where Jonty's actual motivation comes from. And whenever he's kind of put down or put in a bad situation, he tries to adjust it on his vlog so that it looks like with Pete, for example, when they have that a falling out, he tries to adjust it to make it seem like they ended on a great terms and what have you. But you can see he's really broken whenever people leave him, and I feel like he has, especially with his dad, has abandonment issues and is desperate to show the world how great he is. So yeah, he's loud, he's obnoxious, he's annoying, and he's, kind of a bit of a stereotype. Do not be this person. But at the same time, you do see these people constantly, and if you spend a bit of time with them, you realize it generally comes from being overlooked in life and just desperately trying to be seen. I think that's kind of what John T is. And throughout the film, there's this kind of complicated thing of making him dislikable, but not so dislikable that you can't root for any of the characters, because he really just kind of does get in a lot of the scenes and just overwhelm everyone with his ridiculous personality. It was a lot of fun to play, but it was a tough one to play as well.
Yeah, I bet.
Me and Marcus chatted about it extensively. So.
And what do you hope that viewers take away from watching Followers?
I kind of hope that I think in one respect, Followers was quite ahead of its time with the influencing social media sites when it was made, that hadn't come out yet, and so that hadn't been so prevalent, I suppose. And I hope they kind of take, although there's a huge satirical edge with Followers and undercutting on social media, like who we should be, I hope that people kind of take the lesson that it tries to show. That there are things more important than money. There are things more important than fame. There are things more important than even being liked, and whatever. There's friendship, family, humility, or the above. I feel like that's kind of a little piece of what it tries to say.
I hope that girls look at Amber and John C's relationship and want more for themselves.
Yeah.
I think it's toxic.
Yeah, it's so
yeah,
toxic.
But I think that there's a lot of life in there at the moment, and kind of the problems that they face in that film exist now, and maybe they can relate to that and think, maybe I would have done that differently, or she made the wrong choice, or would I do that if I was in that situation, and kind of question their morals and see the consequences for each individual character, and think, well, they made right or wrong their choice, but would I have made that choice, and look where it got them. So just kind of relate to the situations, even though the film is crazy and out there is little elements of real life and real conflict for those characters, and they're faced with horrible situations for young people that we kind of all face because we're in a social media world now. So to just kind of look at it and relate to the character in some way would be a success for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
I also kind of, although there is all that stuff in, I also kind of hope that people just take it a little bit for what it is, because it's just fun. That it has those themes running through it, but it's just fun. And when you just take it as that, I really enjoy it. I think it's one of those films that's just a release in a way.
Out of films, like
It
does. Even though it does look like we're being serious, maybe a bit too much when you say, let's split up and look for clues. Like that was completely sarcastic. Like, I didn't think it was going to be a typical horror film, and that's what we signed up for. But just to enjoy it and have a laugh, you know.
I think that's when horror works best, in a way, is when it does have that undercurrent of real life situations that you can still see. I think when you go too fantastical, you lose some of that connection because it does feel so fantastical. Whereas when you look at a group of people who are very reflective of what culture is like today, and you see them in a scenario like that, you get sucked into it more, and I think it becomes more entertaining and more successful in that way. And this film definitely does that.
Yeah, totally agree.
So what's next for you guys? Erin, what other than sitting in a lovely Norfolk cottage, what are you working on, or what are you doing at the moment?
I do quite a lot of voiceover stuff at the moment. So I do like children's animations and cartoons, which is really fun when you come out the booth and your cheeks are hurting because you've done a 13-year-old's voice for the past few hours. But no, nothing on the horizon yet. Waiting to hear from a couple of callbacks. So hopefully it's the followers magic again and I get the role.
And what about you, Harry? What are you, other than sitting in a yacht in Venice, what are you up to at the moment?
I'm shooting a TV series in Scotland that I'm not allowed to say what it is, but yeah, I'll be filming that for the next few months, and then who knows past there.
Well, guys, thank you so much for chatting to me about Followers today. I really enjoyed the film, and it was nice to be able to kind of get in and see it early and review it early on, and then come back and actually get to talk to you guys about it now that it's coming out on home video. So I hope it finds its audience out there and people love it, because it deserves it.
Thank you so much, Neil. Yeah, it was lovely chatting to you.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Thanks again to Harry and Erin for taking the time to chat with me. We were on for ages. I was getting a bit worried that the Zoom call was going to run out of time because I've only got a little freebie account, and we were nattering away for ages, and it was right before we went to Chicago as well. I had packing to do. There was a lot going on. Anyway, Followers is available now on digital platforms and on DVD and Blu-ray in the UK. I, better late than never, have now been joined by Boy Wonder. Martin has arrived. Would you like to announce yourself into the room?
Well, I feel like I should be announced.
Well, I announced at the beginning that you were joining late this week, so this is your moment to tell the listeners that you've arrived, as has Ollie, who's now running up and down the desk next to me.
Well, I've arrived.
So we are going to talk about two more topics this week before we wrap up episode 74. First up, we're going to talk about Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Now, obviously, if you're in the US, you'll be thinking, oh, these guys are a bit behind, only just talking about Strange New Worlds. But the series just wrapped up its first season, with episode 10 finally airing on Paramount Plus in the UK as of last week. So we now have all 10 episodes available in the UK to stream, again, via Paramount Plus. In case you've been living under a rock, Strange New Worlds is the newest live-action Star Trek series. This one spins off Captain Pike, played by Anson Mount, the Ethan Peck version of Spock, and Rebecca Romijn's Una Chin Riley, who were introduced in Season 2 of Star Trek Discovery. They're now off, having their adventures on the Enterprise in this very cool, very serialised, very awesome new version of Star Trek. Boy Wonder, your feelings on the first season of Star Trek Strange New Worlds? Happy?
Yes.
Where does this land in your sort of rankings of contemporary Trek? So, Discovery onwards.
I would say pretty high. Higher than Discovery.
Okay. Higher than Picard?
Maybe a little bit higher than Picard.
Higher than Lower Decks?
Not higher than Lower Decks.
So Lower Decks, you would say is your favourite contemporary Trek?
I think it was fun, isn't it? It's fun.
Yeah.
I like a bit of
Just
fun.
to say, actually, in case you weren't aware, Season 3 of Star Trek Strange New Worlds is coming to Paramount Plus in the US on August the 25th, and it's now been confirmed that it will still air on Prime Video here in the UK and in the international markets, and will air I say air, but you know what I mean, stream, the following day, so it'll be August the 26th for the Season 3 premiere in international markets. I think I've fallen into that modern Star Trek place whereby every series that's currently airing is my favourite. So when Picard is on, Picard is my favourite. When Discovery is on, Discovery is my favourite. When Lower Decks is on, Lower Decks is my favourite. And funnily enough, when we watch Stranger Things, when we watch Strange New Worlds, that was also my favourite Star Trek. So I'm struggling to decide where it lands. How do you feel about the fact that this is a much more classically serialised Star Trek rather than Discovery? Sorry, not serialised, that's the complete opposite of what I mean. It's much more, story of the week, where Discovery is very serialised.
Well, I like the story of the week, but I also like that there's a golden thread throughout as well.
Yes, so I feel like this has the best of the original series, which is that each week we go somewhere different, do something different, but with all of kind of the next generation's character arcs, where, Next Gen still had some serialized storytelling, but more often than not, it was the mission of the week, but there was a lot going on with the characters that ran through all 7 years. I feel like you've got the best of both worlds. To shoehorn in an episode title. Doth you agree?
I doth.
Favorite character in this version of Star Trek? Do you have one? Don't say Pike's hair.
Well, no, I like the whole of him, not just the hair.
Why do I feel like we've had this conversation before?
Well, I mean, he's just a very good captain, isn't he?
He is a very good captain, yes. I think he's a very amiable lead. I think he carries the show very well.
Yes,
I think Anson Mount is a brilliant actor.
He could carry me as well if he wanted.
Right. We've definitely had this conversation before on this podcast. So now we've seen all 10 episodes. Do you have any favourites?
No, I think it was a solid season, very consistent.
Okay.
Good quality storytelling. Apart from that one that I didn't like, but I can't remember what it was.
See, this is what I thought. I thought there was going to be there's a specific episode that I know you didn't really like. And interestingly, it's an episode that Nicola and Chris just watched. So she'd messaged me last night. She was like, I love episode 8. And I was like, oh, the fairy tale.
Oh, I didn't like that one. No, I didn't like that.
So that's the one you mean, right?
I think so. What were you thinking?
That's what I meant. You really checked out on the fairy tale episode.
Yeah.
So that's the one where Mbenga's reading the story to his daughter, and then it kind of comes to life, and they use all of... I still think... I agree with you, it maybe isn't my favourite episode, but I like the fact that they didn't... It's like a holodeck episode, which can be very hit and miss, as we are well aware as Star Trek fans. But I like that, because obviously you don't have a holodeck in this era of Star Trek, that they, instead of going to a random fairy tale planet, it was still the ship. Cheaper for the budget, but also I like the way that they were able to redress all of the sets that you knew from different parts of the ship to be something completely different. I thought that was very cool. If I had to pick a favourite episode, it might be episode 9, which is the first, by the way, spoilers for anyone that's not watched it, the Gorn episode. So not the one where the Gorn attack the ship. That is another one of my favourites, which was that kind of ship in a bottle submarine type episode. But the one where you actually get to see the Gorn, and the Gorn it's very horror. I thought it was a very good episode. With a great
alien.
Yes, and a very good emotional ending. Very Alien, some definite lifting of things from Alien, but in a very good way. Star Trek doesn't often do horror very well. I can't really think of any. Can you think of any Voyager episodes that do horror or try to do horror?
No, there's no horror.
What about that Year of Darkness or whatever it's called?
Year of Hell.
That's the one.
Well, it's not really horror. That's just a two-part of timey
Yeah.
wimey.
See, whereas when I think horror, I think of that episode where Barclay becomes a giant spider.
Well, there's the episode where the macro virus runs around the ship and tries to kill them all. That's a bit horror, where it's like, oh, is it behind me? Oh God, there's there. Ah.
I don't remember that one because I'm not great with Voyager. But do you?
Oh, it's the best one. It's where she gets her vest on and she's got like the rucksack and a gun and she's like, ah. Remember that one? It's all the gifts.
Okay. But you've just broken my theory there. My theory was going to be that Star Trek doesn't do horror very well, but you've just said it's one of the best.
Well, yeah. Oh, I do a few classes horror. Horror for me, I'd say.
Wait, so I think of that episode where everyone on the Enterprise regresses and Worf becomes this giant monster that's trying to kill people. You've got Troy as a fish in the bath, having been bitten by him. Crusher gets her face melted off by his acid sacs, and Barclay becomes a giant spider, which still to this day scares me to death, like it did as a child. And I don't think horror type episodes is something that you typically associate with Star Trek.
I suppose there is another horror type episode in Voyager.
Indulge us more.
Where Seven is on her own,
Mm-hmm.
and they're traveling through a nebula.
Do you mean Commander 7 or Commander Arnica of the USS Stargazer?
Just Seven at this point.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry.
And she's on her own, and she goes slightly mad and thinks there's somebody trying to kill her.
Oh.
Well, not slightly mad, but Borg don't do very well on their own.
No, that's very true. Okay, well, my theory of Star Trek doesn't necessarily do horror very well. May have been ruined by Voyager. I just don't think it's a genre that you associate with Star Trek very much. So I think it was quite cool that they experimented with things that Star Trek is used to doing, like sort of slight comedy episodes like the body swap or the ship has been attacked and disabled type stuff. There's lots of stuff across the season which I think you recognise as being very typically Star Trek, and then I think there are other things that they do which are genuinely out of the box a bit and different for the franchise as a whole, and I think they do all of it well. Some of it more successfully than others, but I think all of it is still done well. They just won an award as well at the Hollywood Critics Association Award. They got given a special award for, it was just called the Legacy Award, and it was for recreating the legacy of classic Star Trek and making it contemporary without completely relying on nostalgia. It's a very specific award that's like, you did something that is very much this thing, but a very new version of this thing without doing what, Star Wars does and just telling us that it's things from the past that we all love. Okay, so spoilers for the kind of season finale now, just for a couple of minutes. How do you feel about what they did with the season finale and how it sort of lines up with the original series? Now, I don't mean that in a, are you intimately aware of that period of the original series, because I know you're not, but how do you feel about what they did? I've already said spoilers, so I don't know why I've talked around it. I could just say the fact that they recreated an episode of the original series, but from a different perspective.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting way to do it.
Did you enjoy the episode?
I did enjoy the episode.
Did you enjoy some of the people who were in the episode that hadn't been in the rest of the season?
Oh, yes, yeah. Oh, no, I'm with you. I couldn't remember the episode, to be honest with you. I remember it now. It was a very interesting
We only watched it like yesterday.
Oh, and it's been a very long week. It's only Tuesday. No, it was good. It was a nice, timey-wimey, what-if type episode.
Mm-hmm.
But,
very what if.
done well.
Yep.
It was a, what if it was good? And it was. Yeah, I liked it. Again, it sort of gives us a glimpse of another timeline.
Yeah.
Like the movies.
The Star Trek multiverse, well and truly in place.
But bringing it back to, an original timeline.
Yes, I don't know what you would call it. I just call it prime timeline.
Yeah, prime line.
Prime line. Okay. Any other thoughts on Strange New Worlds before I move us along?
No, I mean, what more can you ask for from a Star Trek program
Than
Captain Pike?
You're going to have to wait a long time for season 2.
And very good storytelling.
Yes. Very great special effects as well. It's a very big budget show and it carries it off very, very well. You will have to wait a while for season 2 because it won't be coming until next year. if you're very lucky, then maybe Captain Pike will be at the Star Trek panel at New York Comic Con in a few weeks' time when we're there.
I wouldn't be able to talk to him.
Moving on. Last up this week, we're going to be talking about Warner Brother Pictures, but also Warner Animation Group's DC League of Super Pets, which is currently in UK cinemas. This stars Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, not as Black Adam. Kind of does star him as Black Adam, as Crypto the Superdog, and Kevin Hart as Ace the Bat Hound, as well as a plethora of furry, not furry, shelled creatures from across the DC universe in a magical, fun family adventure. I haven't written a review of this one because we were in Chicago when it came out, and I saw it at the cinema in Chicago rather than a press screening. So I've had a bit of a mental block and haven't written down my thoughts on it. But we finally took you to see it this weekend because you were at work in Chicago when I saw it, and so I thought it's about time we kind of talked about it because we've not given too much exposure to this one, despite the fact that I think it's a very fun film. What did you think of DC League of Super Pets?
I thought it was okay.
We slept through 20 minutes of it, which kind of annoyed me.
I mean, it was a dark room. I was comfortable.
It was very cold,
It was
which was nice because it was 35 degrees outside.
Yeah, I mean, it was okay.
What did you like about it?
I thought it was fun. I think it'd be a good kids' film.
Which it is a kids' film. It's not, we are slightly older than the maybe target market for this film, but
some older than others.
It still, choked me up a couple of times. I very nearly cried both times I saw this film at certain scenes.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Really, I was about to say I don't like, but it's not that I don't like it. Really quite emotionally impacted by the opening scene, particularly when poor baby Cal is crying in the ship, and then baby Crypto gives him a cuddle. That's hit me really hard both times I watched it. I really properly choked up. And then I think it's also very sad when you get the backstory of Ace. I think that's sad.
Yeah.
All right, cold and emotionless over here.
No, I mean, it was all right.
Was there anything... So there's something specific that I think you probably didn't like about this film, but we haven't talked about it because I specifically thought we'd bring it up here. So let's see if this works or not. But was there anything particular that you didn't like about this film?
Not really.
Oh, okay.
Why, what do you think I didn't like about it?
I was going to say that you wouldn't like the character designs for the humans. I wondered whether you really didn't like the very big-necked, strangely shouldered version of Batman and Superman. Or I feel like the human characters are quite oddly proportioned in strange ways. So Batman doesn't really have a neck, it's just a head into shoulders. And Superman's quite similar. Whereas when you see Superman next to Lois, she's very much more a normal head and shoulders kind of proportion. So they are they're designed very differently, the Justice League. And it's very specific. And I don't know that I wholly like those character designs. I think the characters are played really well. I think they're portrayed really well, but I'm not sure about the visual of the Justice League in it.
It didn't really bother me. I mean, I just accepted it as it's a kid's film.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's not like I was sitting there going, well, this is just not going to land with the audience who've been reading the comics for 40 years because this just doesn't look like Batman. But
it sounds like something you would say.
It just maybe isn't how I would have done it if I was in charge.
It exactly sounds like what you just said.
They're just not the best designs in the world for me, but clearly kids have enjoyed it because it's doing really well at the cinema. So
I think you'll find Batman's ears should be 3 inches, not 4.
Thank you very much, Marlene. Well, but okay, let's talk about Batman. What do you think of Keanu Reeves playing him?
Yeah, very, very clever. It's a genius move.
At some point during the film, I thought you were going to turn to me and go, "Is that Keanu Reeves?"
Well, I wouldn't want to. You were too busy taking notes and measuring his ears.
I think he's a brilliant Batman, and I love the way that it's not just a comedy Batman, that he's still dark and broody, but a funny dark and broody. I also hadn't noticed the first time I saw it that they do take a potshot joke about Superman would be better to try and disguise himself using a mustache rather than glasses. Mustache gate. Were there... Okay, so of the kind of the lead animals, do you have a favourite?
No.
Oh.
They were all very good animals.
Yes.
They all had their own qualities.
Yes.
We had dogs.
Yes.
We had a pig.
We didn't have a cat. Well, we did have a cat, but he was evil.
We had an evil cat. Well, I mean... Let's face it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's one line on my keyboard now, so, you know.
They do that. I'm good and innocent, but I'm going to knock this over.
Yeah.
Whilst looking at you.
I thought you would have been a big fan of the turtle.
I mean, it was a funny turtle.
You like old ladies, though.
Oh, thanks. I sound like a right weirdo.
And have you listened to the other 73 episodes of this podcast?
No, I don't listen to podcasts.
I had in my head that either the turtle or the pig would be your favourite.
No, I like
I really thought you were going to mock me for saying turtle. Then.
I like the gerbil.
Oh, of course. Yes. So you do have a bit of a penchant for Kate McKinnon. She's very funny. Recede into darkness, recede into darkness, recede into darkness.
Maintain eye contact.
She's brilliant. And I'm glad that there is a mid-credit scene that would tease that Lulu is not yet done. Because I would like more Lulu.
Yeah. Good old Lulu.
Is it the fact that she's hairless?
Well, I mean, that adds to the sort of the craziness of it all.
She has a brilliant voice. You still know that it's her the whole time, but she's just brilliant. She is absolutely brilliant. I would not hear a bad word said about her, even in Lady Ghostbusters.
Oh, controversial.
Sorry, Ghostbusters, answer the call. Hey, I feel sorry for that film. I think that film is funny. I don't think it's anywhere near as bad as people make it out to be. And it's very sad that if you now go out and buy the complete Ghostbusters, it's Ghostbusters 1, 2, and Ghostbusters Afterlife.
So 3.
Yeah. They're not included in the complete Ghostbusters.
Well, it's a different universe.
They've been removed. They used to be in there.
Retconned.
Yeah. Anyway, she is brilliant. I also really like John Krasinski as Superman. I think he's quite a good Superman. So you don't do names. So John Krasinski is writer and director of A Quiet Place. He is in the first one, but he, spoiler alert for anyone that's not seen it, dies at the end. And he's the guy that plays Mr. Fantastic in Multiverse of Madness.
Oh, yes.
If you could look up from your phone for a moment.
Well, they fixed our heating problem.
Oh, very good. Yeah, so he is Multiverse of Madness's Mr. Fantastic, the long fan casted as Mr. Fantastic, him and his wife. As
the long Mr. Fantastic.
Yes. But he's a really good Superman, I think. There's not a lot more that I think you can say about this film because it is a kids' film. I just think it's flown a little bit under the radar, I think, just because Top Gun is still commanding a lot of people's attention at the box office.
Is it?
Yeah. Top Gun has managed to make nearly 700 million in America. Oh. It's now surpassed Titanic and almost surpassed Black Panther. So it's nearly the third highest grossing movie of all time in America. And it's only the second film to make over $1 billion since the pandemic started. Oh. So it's on its way to almost making as much money as No Way Home, which is the highest grossing movie of the pandemic era. It is by far the biggest film of this year. So it's still kind of dominating the box office a bit. And you had Minions out recently that's pleased families, and you've got Nope out that's for the adults. So it's fallen a little bit in a sort of late summer. People may be enjoying the sunshine, going to the cinema a little bit less. It's still made over $100 million worldwide so far, though. And it's obviously only been out for just going on 3 weeks, which is really good because that means it's, by at this point, probably doubled the amount that Teen Titans Go to the Movies makes, which is the only other kind of DC animated movie that's been in the cinema as an actual proper like theatrical release. So it's done really, really well. So hopefully there will be sequels and stuff. The Rock and his version of the DC universe is intriguing if you stay for the post-credit scene that's in this film. I also really like the score, which is by Steve Jablonsky, who is a name that not many people know, but he does a lot of the music for the Transformers franchise.
What was that name again?
Jablonsky. Oh. Steve Jablonsky. Particularly brilliant score to Transformers 3 that's not available on Apple Music, which is very sad. Anyway, I was wrapping this up. So DC League of Super Pets, if you've not seen it, it is brilliant. It is still in the cinema. You can already pre-order it on digital. It'll be coming to digital platforms to rent quite soon, and probably, I would imagine, by October, November, they'll be getting ready for it to release on home video, probably just in time for Christmas. I would like a cuddly toy Crypto, but the only one that I could find was life-size and cost 70 quid. I don't want a life-size one.
Where would you put it?
I don't know. I don't think the cats would like it.
No.
Anyway, that is it for this week. Join us again in 2 weeks' time, where it'll be Bank Holiday Week here in the UK. Woohoo! short week at work, we will have seen the first few episodes of She-Hulk, which I'm very excited for because I am a big Tatiana Maslany fan from Orphan Black. I don't know what else we will have seen. I have seen lots of horror movies recently. I've watched Fall from Signature Entertainment, Orphan First Kill, which is a really interesting and campy one. What else have I watched? Glorious, which is a Shudder. Plenty of Shudder films I've watched recently. If you want to get heavy, there's What Josiah Saw, which just came out. Lots of horror. We're heading into Halloween season. Shudder just announced that they're basically branding themselves the home of Halloween this year, and they have nothing short of a shit ton of films releasing between September and October for their Halloween season. So we're heading into spooky season anyway. And we will have some news next episode on the next big DC UK competition. So if you follow us on social media, you'll have seen that we teamed up with DC to give away a family trip to LA to the Warner Brothers Studio Tour and to see DC League of Super Pets. The next big competition is coming. I cannot tell you what it is just yet, but we will be discussing it in our next podcast, which will be releasing sometime in the week of the 29th of August. So we'll catch you then. So until then, bye!